What's up, traders? Welcome to the Day Trading Show. Today, we are sitting down with a special guest, Jared Tendler. Jared has written a couple of books about trading, about poker, mindset, success. You guys are going to really like this conversation. Like, I was taking notes as we were speaking with Jared. We talk a little bit about his background. We talk how he got involved with golf, with poker players, and now probably his more recent of the three with traders. He shares a ton of great value on how to mentally get in the state that will allow you to perform your best. So I'm going to leave that right there. Before we get into the video, I want to let you guys know, Tom and I here today, we're streaming live on ASFX TV all week long. So if you guys want to trade live with us in the live trading room, click the link in the description. There's a 3-day free trial where you can come check out ASFX TV. But without any further ado, enjoy the conversation with Jared Tendler. All right, everybody, we are back with another episode of the Day Trading Show. We have a special guest. Jared Tendler is here to talk to us, not just about trading. I'm sure we're going to talk about poker. Soon, Jared and I are going to have a conversation about our common heartbreak for being Philly fans. Just found out that he's from where I grew up, so it's pretty cool. And he's connected to Tom through one of his co-authors on one of his books. So very small world here. But Jared, we're really excited to have you on, bro. Thank you for giving us the time.
Yeah, thanks for the time. I will say, being socialized to Philadelphia sports, but in my heart, I'm a Giants fan and a Mets fan. So I know I'm gonna.
Oh God, Jared, this is gonna go well, man. I'm telling you, this conversation's gonna go really well. You being a Giants fan is just. I knew there was gonna be something that your book really helped me a lot. I'm not just saying that, but like you do a lot of great work for the trading community through the content that you create. So I knew something was going to be wrong with you. Like you couldn't be perfect. You
Yeah,
know
of course not. Yeah,
of course not. And of course, the only thing worse would have been if you said you were a Cowboys fan. You know what I'm saying? Like
I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm not that low.
All right, that's good. Then we can continue the podcast. I'm cool. We're fine. No, but it's good. So, Jared, can you kind of, for everybody that doesn't know you, we all know you, and my audience will probably know you through the mental game of trading. Can you give everybody else just an overview of who you are, how you got into writing books, and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm a mental game coach. I've been doing this will be my 18th year of coaching. Started in 2005, really with golfers, right? So I wanted to play professional golf myself. Kind of got derailed. 1997, freshman year of college, trying to qualify for the U.S. Open. Basically choked, right? I missed a playoff to get onto the second stage by a shot. Missed a bunch of putts from yay length, and that, it happens once. It's a one-off. Happens again, trying to qualify for the USAM. Now all of a sudden I got to kind of dive into this field, and the bottom line is, golf psychology helped me to a point. I got better. I was, a 3-time All-American, Division III, won 9 tournaments in college. But anytime I was playing in kind of the big national events, like I just kind of kept choking. So, my professional aspirations were kind of derailed. And at that point, I kind of reasoned that what was missing from traditional golf psychology was kind of an understanding causality of like why I was choking. It kind of gave me a lot of advice that helped in general, but I would kind of put that under the umbrella of like patchwork band-aids. For some people it worked, and great, good for you, kudos. But for me, and I think a lot of others, it wasn't, right? And so I kind of reasoned, right, either I'm going to solve my own issues, which I think most people that go into psychology are looking to do that anyway, side note, or I would, and then be able to play professional golf, or I would be able to create a career out of it. So after college, I went to Northeastern University in Boston, got a master's degree in counseling psychology, and then kind of began like blending sports psychology and traditional therapy to kind of create my own program. Now I needed to spend 2 years getting licensed as a therapist, so 3,200 hours, right? Basically spent 4 years effectively kind of getting trained to go deeper. So I say a lot of that because I think it is important to differentiate my background from a lot of, even like the life coaches that are out there. I mean, you can take a life coaching certification and in 3 months, like you're working with people. I've had clients of mine who in the past have, done good work with me. They've improved a lot and they're really excited and enthusiastic, and they'll go do one of these courses. And I'm like, look, it is very different solving your own issues and being able to kind of turn the lens and look at a myriad, like a wide variety of other people, and be able to work with them. And frankly, when I started in 2005, I was not very good. I mean, I was kind of like a bumbling toddler, like trying to combine these things and began kind of talking about things that I thought at the time were different, but really they were somewhat of a kind of a rehash. And it took me, ironically, more time with professional poker players than it was with golfers, because the poker players, they were actually willing to invest a lot more time. They were willing to kind of do the extra work. And it's because I didn't know as much about poker as I did about golf, it like forced me to kind of go layers beyond in terms of my comprehension of that industry to really understand how to help them. And it like effectively, when I started writing The Mental Game of Poker, I started writing it about 2008, released it in 2011. I began kind of conceptualizing a lot of the things that I was doing intuitively. And that's when my system was kind of born. And the system from that point until, The Mental Game of Trading came out had been kind of steadily getting more and more refined. And so, I think the cool thing about The Mental Game of Trading coming out, like literally about 10 years after, it really systematized my system in such a large degree that it's now, I think, in a form that's not going to change for a very long time. It will, kind of adapt as I grow, but for the most part, it's pretty damn solid.
That is so interesting. So I'm going to backtrack to the beginning of what you said, but
yeah,
the refinement process of what you've gone through between writing those two books, Tom, doesn't it sound a lot like how the Black Shirt Club has grown over the last 2 or 3 years? Like I just relate a lot to what you're saying about, like, I was a bumbling toddler when we started our mentorship group. There was no structure, no time frame. You just paid monthly. Now it's a 12-week program. Everything is tracked. Everything is detailed. The systems are tight. So I can totally relate to that. But I want to, before we get into the golf, because Tom is a big golfer too, and I know that Tom's going to have a ton of questions about that. You went from literally, I'm going to be a professional golfer, which we all know what kind of lifestyle that is, right, to a master's degree. I'm an ex-athlete. I ran track in college and high school, and I was pretty fast. I hated school. I feel like so many athletes don't want anything to do with a master's degree. So I have to ask, how did you, like, you just made, in the way you explained your story, you made that switch so easy. Were you always a student? Did you know you needed the master's? Was that always the backup plan? Like, how did that transition happen? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, no, I was not always a good student. I was good enough to get by, finished top 10% of my class in high school, was like smart enough, but didn't work. It was kind of like in that scenario. And I was, very much more of an athlete than I was a student, but I always kind of knew that I had intellectual capacity, just never really found an opportunity to kind of tap into that. And so junior year of college is like when I started to kind of see like the writing was on the wall. Like, am I really going to turn pro in a year? Like, that seems like a massive gamble. And kind of started looking at graduate school. And so I kind of transitioned from a business degree, which to me at that point was just like my backup plan. I was like, all right, well, if I fail at golf, I'll just go into business. My family's been in business for years, and small business owners, entrepreneurs, et cetera. But like transitioning to psychology required, not shockingly, a lot more, kind of mental capital. And so, got I feel like I got like a C in my first like intro to psych class, and then experimental psych 62 on my first test. And that was like that was like the legit wake up call. I was like, all right, look, if you want this, like, you actually are going to have to work for it. And, 96, 98 in my next 2 tests, passed with an A, and then, kind of was like, I'm not going to say game over from there, but it was like, I had kind of turned on my work ethic for this.
You tasted the success and like what effort you needed to put in to get that degree, to go down that path. And you were like, I can do this.
Yeah, exactly. It was, it really was just you got to put the time in, kind of like I did with golf. I mean, with golf, it was easy because I loved it. This was more of like an arranged marriage.
When did you start playing golf? Was that really young?
No, actually, I started playing tennis when I was like 2 or 3 years old.
Okay.
My parents played, and I was ranked as a junior in Connecticut in tennis. Not very high, but I was, for a kid that was like 4'7", 4'9", like I was fast and was scrappy, and that was kind of my MO. But then I was also a good baseball player. So baseball, tennis, and golf were all spring sports where I went to.
You picked them right there.
Yeah, you kind of like, you do the calculus. It's like, all right, Michael Chang, like the only professional tennis player under 4'8".
Right.
I was a great pitcher and great in the outfield, great shortstop in Little League, but like you go to a big field. I was 4'11", 90 pounds as a freshman in high school. Like I physically was not able to like. But then golf is like, it doesn't matter how big you are. No, there's no defense out there. No. I didn't. So yeah, it was like the calculus was, hey, this is so I picked up the game like 9-10 years old with my grandfather, and then like dedicated myself the year before my freshman year of high school. And this is cool because both my freshman year of high school and college, I was like the sixth man out of five in the first event. So like they have qualifying and you're kind of like right on the cusp. I know that I'm good enough to play, but there's like entrenched guys in the team. And so in my first event in high school, I shot 39 in a 9-hole match and beat everybody. Like, so like both varsity teams, did the exact same thing in my second match. And so then like the coach was like, all right, well, we have to play you. So it was 4 seniors and me, freshman year of high school.
That's
and
a good sign.
In college, I qualified like right on the teetering, like again, 6th man. The first guy, number 5 guy didn't count in the first event. And so, my coach gave me a shot in the second tournament. One of my scores counted the second match. And so because of that, I got to play in the third, and then I won the third event. Then I won the fourth event. And then I was kind of like there. So yeah, I mean, I kind of have I don't want to say like the underdog mentality, but for sure, being small, kind of like the grit and just like find the bone that I want and just go after it until I get it.
It is very true. And listen, Tom and I met for the first time in December. We had a seminar in London, and me standing next to him, I'm like you. I'm short. I'm 5'4". Like I'm at Tom's waist. Tom is a giant. So Tom's got this long stroke. I'm sure he thinks he can outdrive me, but guys like you and me, we got that stocky, low center of gravity. We can carry that ball too. So that is very interesting. I'll tell you really quick my golf story. I tried out for golf in high school. I really wanted to play Laurel Creek Country Club. It was this course near my house. It's a beautiful course. So I was like, I'll try out. And I had played some golf. I had done some lessons because we lived near country clubs in South Jersey. And I made the team. As soon as I made the team, after those 2 rounds, that same day, the track coach was speaking to me saying how much they needed me to run on this relay and blah, blah, blah. So I quit the golf team that same day because I knew I really wanted to run track. But that happened, and I went to the golf team and to the track team because same thing. I was a soccer player, but at a certain point, I got to an age where I was just too small. Like the speed and everything didn't count anymore. They were bigger than me. They had better skills than me. So I needed a new sport. So I can totally relate to everything you're saying, 100%.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah. Tom, you got a golf story for us that we can relate this to? Because I'm sure you're sitting there biting at the bit.
There's so many parallels between golf and trading. I could just reel them off forever and a day. And I was listening to a couple of Jared's earlier podcasts back end of last week, and he was talking about preparation and missing a couple of them puts late on and how he relates that to trading around that a lot of people's emotional issues come from that sort of lack of preparation or not enough trust in their system. And it's just so true across the sports as well. Like I remember in tournament, I was in a tournament. I had like a 3-foot putt. I was about 12 at the time for my first club champs. And I just completely basically shit the bed. Like I literally was like this. I couldn't like shaking, and you could visibly see the shaking. And after that, in the moment, I was like, I can't ever do this again. And I would just literally beast myself on putting greens and just force myself to say, look, you cannot leave this putting green until you hole 100 putts in a row. And that was my MO then from that day on. If I wanted to practice, I would have to leave after 100 putts from 3 foot and in, because I didn't ever want to be in that situation where I could literally not, I was like literally shake. You could visibly see the shaking. So yeah, I think I speak about it all the time, could go on about the parallels forever in golf.
The shaking hands one is one I can relate to too. So after I've kind of gone through the arc of like, I sucked, choking, and like kind of really understanding, like the reasons why I was, one of it was that I was like completely misperceiving like that fear and that pressure. And so, it to like view that handshaking as being bad is the reason why it was bad, not because it's inherently bad. And I think, I'll, as an aside, like traders fundamentally misunderstand the inherent intensity of trading, and that when they feel that intensity, they think that there's something wrong. It's like, no, you're literally participating in the most competitive industry marketplace on the planet. To think that you should go in there feeling like this kind of zen calm is I think a little misguided. And so I kind of, after I had realized this, I was playing in the USAM qualifier, And on the first hole, really tough green, kind of like pitched front to back, long as dead. It's kind of in the front green side bunker, hit it to 4 feet, which was a good shot. But now I kind of this like tricky downhill slider putt. And my hands were literally shaking. So I kind of stepped back and just reminded myself, like, it doesn't matter. It like literally doesn't matter. And so with my hands visibly shaking, I made that putt because my perspective on that experience was fundamentally different. And so like, that was like kind of one example of many of like what was at kind of the heart of my own issues and, kind of the beginning of the transformation.
And how many traders could benefit from that awareness, in the fact that you were able in the moment to recognize that? And this is what I see when we coach a lot of traders, is they're not, sometimes they don't even know the thing that they're trying to rectify or the reasons why things are. But then when they find out that what is happening and why it's happening, then they can go and put steps in place to improve or make changes. Like you said there, you were aware of the hand shaking. And when you became aware of that, you were able to step back and like recompose. Is that something that you find is lacking in like a lot of traders that you work with?
No, mostly because they've got to have some self-awareness before they show up.
Right.
I mean, like, I actually literally had a conversation with a prospective client yesterday, and I could tell very clearly, like, he does not have enough data for us to even work with, right? He doesn't know what's happening. He knows what's wrong, but doesn't have any predictability. So, as you guys know from the book, like, one of the first things that I have, readers do is like actually to map your pattern of FOMO or greed or anger or fear, whatever kind of emotional problems are causing the trading errors that you're experiencing, right? So you kind of start with the trading errors and then, kind of back your way into understanding like how you got there, like what was the causality around it, and the patterning around it. Because you can chart your emotions like you'd see price action. And if you can do that, then you can start to spot the opportunities. But if you don't have that vision, right, you can't stop something you can't see. So the vision, the awareness, the self reflection is like the most important thing. Like once you get that, it doesn't mean that, it's kind of game over and it's solved, but now you've got like an option. Otherwise you're just kind of like blindly throwing darts at a dartboard, like kind of hoping you can, land something of value.
Yeah. I'd just like to go back to another point you made, Jared. The perspective created the positive outcome, even though it would be seen by most people as a negative, the handshaking. Is that just because mind over matter, or is there something else to it of like your perspective is actually shaping the reality? So if you, to the extent of like, if you think you're going to play, like, this is why I feel like they tell you to visualize things, right? If you say, I'm going to be a great trader, you can become a great trader. But if you always think I'm going to fail at trading, I'm always going to lose, you're going to lose all the time. So is it that same kind of like manifestation, mind over matter thing?
I'm not a big proponent of that for the sake of it, right? I don't like bullshit for the sake of it. And maybe that's right, because I used to be a bullshit artist. I think you kind of had to be, good enough in school to get by. But like in the specific example of my hand shaking in that putt, no, it's actually more of a focus thing, right? Mm-hmm. So if I am focused on my hand shaking, then that is as consequential as me focusing on my feet while I'm putting. It literally has the same consequence. So you and I are having a conversation. Anybody that's listening, if you focus on how your butt feels in the chair right now, that is as much of a distraction, right? Because now you're going to have to kind of toggle between the sensation in your butt, your legs, right, versus like what my words are saying. And there should be like a little bit of fuzziness, like kind of as you toggle between those two.
100%. 100%. I know exactly.
So that's the most consequential part of it, right? When you start to realize that like that like pressure at its most basic level is a distraction, it brings our attention inward on things that we're not normally attending to, right? In this case, I needed to stay focused on the way that I would visualize the ball going in the hole, the feeling and the pacing with which it's going to go in the hole, right? What I would, as a golfer, would construct as my target, right? My target is the entire shot. Me being connected to that is the most important thing. That's what I was able to do. But the pressure distracts you from that. So at a basic level, yes, traders experience the exact same thing. They start getting more focused on their own thoughts, their internal dialogue, and less on the price action, right? And so then because they're less focused on the price action and the way that their strategy lines up with that, right, they start to become a little bit more itchy and impulsive, or a little bit more gun shy. It's like, this thing is setting up, but I've got all this inner dialogue. Now, for me, in that moment, there was great clarity on like what my execution was. There was no other noise going on. If you have clarity on what's going on and you have some understanding, it's like, okay, I accept these feelings that I'm having that are stress induced. I'm feeling a lot of pressure to make money in this spot. I don't want to lose money, whatever it is. But I don't have yet an understanding of like what all these other thoughts are that are kind of ripping through my mind, which for most people that experience, fear in trading, anxiety, nervousness, pressure in trading, it really can be a very like kind of a cerebral cognitive kind of thing. Whereas anger is like the exact opposite. Anger, there's no thought. And that's why you end up, making a lot of bad decisions because you don't have that kind of governance. So, but if you're going to be able to kind of get rid of those thoughts, you do have to better understand their causality, understand that some of it may be due to some expectations. Maybe it's due to some, I've a trader I'm working with this afternoon. He has what I call the beaten dog syndrome, right? He is fearful of tilt. And so he has consciously chosen not to take certain trades at certain times, because if it loses, which, is going to happen, obviously, it's going to cause so much tilt that he's going to end up losing more. So he will, I think correctly at this point, avoid those trades. Not correctly in the long term, but correctly in that we haven't been able to solve this yet. So my point in general is that like sometimes it's a perspective shift that can change. If that's not enough, then you have to kind of go layers beyond to better understand kind of what's going through your mind, what you're physically experiencing, what your habits are, what the changes are in your perception of the market, changes in your perception of your positions, like basically begin the data collection mapping process, because that gives you the information that you need to then start to break down the individual flaws that are creating that, right? I think a lot of people have the sense that emotions are the problem, and the emotions are not the problem, right? In so much as they're just a signal or a part of the overall, kind of patterning or problem.
And then when you see new traders thinking, I need to shut off my emotions, you must be like ripping your hair out because you're like, no, stop shutting them off. Listen to them, like use them, right?
Yeah. I mean, so there's the difficult part is that people think that emotions are like the cause of all of these, kind of bad mistakes. And they're really just kind of like a part of it. The best way I describe it is like, if you're walking down the street and you feel pain in your foot, what are you going to do? I mean, you're not going to like deny it. You're not going to try to shut off that pain signal. And that's effectively what traders are trying to do when they're saying like, shut your emotions off, right? Emotions are a signal. Now, the big question mark is like, what is that signal telling us, right? Now, it could be telling us, as you alluded to earlier, that there is a weakness in our strategy. And so I don't have a lot of conviction in this thing because I kind of intuitively know that there are holes in it, but I'm not consciously aware of that. So I'm feeling a bit more fear and hesitance around my system or the way that it's kind of lining up with current market regime. And so that is like appropriate. Like we don't want that signal to be shut off. It's like you are getting a clear slap in the face that says, go back into the sim, go back to paper trading, go back and do back testing, figure out what the hell is going on so that you can tighten things up and be more systematized. But then there's also the like lots of hesitation, lots of kind of hatred that come out, and so yeah, traders want to try to shut off those things, but those emotions are now coming from this sort of layer of what I call performance flaws. Right. In the book, I talk about like 40 of them. So, the illusions of control, the hindsight bias, confirmation bias, perfectionism, high expectations, like those are just kind of an example of the underlying flaws. And they are what is causing the flashes of greed and FOMO and anger and loss of confidence and overconfidence and lack of discipline. All that, emotional chaos is being caused by those performance flaws. So you don't want to shut off those signals, because if you're able to correct them,
right,
then you're able to kind of just trade without having to monitor those reactions. You ideally want to have a free mind in this. So you want to have, your emotions guiding you in a very kind of intuitive, high level way. And I kind of liken that to, like cleaning out contaminated water, right? You want to be able to like drink from something that's pure. You want your mind to have a clarity and a purity. And by and large, like those are words that traders use when they are at their best. It's the contamination, it's the cloudiness, it's the fogginess. And a lot of that is, emotionally generated. There's a lot of extra thoughts, but it's not the emotions or the thoughts that are the problem, right? And that's a key point. It's the underlying flaws, biases, wishes, illusions, hopes, dreams. Like they are ultimately like the catalyst for creating all that chaos.
So I do want to go deeper on that. I know Tom probably does as well, but I'm just curious. Poker players, golfers, and traders, who are the hardest to coach?
So far, it's been golfers.
I was going to say that because, Tommy was a golfer when he came to us, and he's a stubborn motherfucker. So it makes sense. It makes sense. So if they're the hardest to coach, is it because the habits die hard, they've been playing for a while, and it's hard for them to reshape? Or what is it that makes them hard to coach?
I think there's just, it's harder. I mean, it's gotten easier with technology in both trading and in poker to like practice. But by and large, the like number of options that traders and poker players have to improve is more limited, and the amount of variance that's involved causes much more emotional volatility. So by and large, there's just kind of more urgency and necessity to like work on the mental game than with golfers. So I think that's one. Golfers can buy new clubs. They can go practice for hours and hours. Just like Tom, they can sit on the practice green and hit 1,000 putts a day and like think that that's effective. I mean, I don't know if you remember Charles Barkley when he had his big yips, and Hank Haney made a whole show about like literally like forcing him to hit thousands of golf balls to like fix this like crazy golf swing that he had, which is probably one of the worst golf swings that has ever been known to man. And not shockingly, it didn't freaking work, because you can't solve like real mental and emotional issues with like better technique. So, Tom, if it worked for you, great, because it probably gave you a lot of confidence, right? But I can promise you there are many people who that doesn't work for, because right, you can't just kind of like top down force your way in. So
it's like you're doing it from the outside, right? It's kind of like you're trying to scratch the surface of fixing the problem. You're maybe getting a layer deep in the physical sense, but you're not getting to the psychological root of it.
That's right. So you'll be able to do it, 99% of the time, but like in the moments where it freaking matters, like
right. Hands are shaking again.
Perfect. Yeah. And the other thing is that, we think about like kind of the width of like my coaching. It's not just the people at the top. It's also, like kind of the mid-stakes traders, right? The traders, 4 or 5 years in who are, now full-time making decent money, but, still have a long way to go to become, elite or like making like, really great money. And poker's the same thing. Like they have an inherent interest more so than golfers, right? I mean, who is my client base? Like, the top 150, 200 players in the world. Like, I mean, they're really the only ones that can afford me. Everybody else is like now doing it for recreation, like for, right. Other interests. So yeah. And I think by and large, it just feels like the mental game should be a lot easier than it is in golf. And there's a lot more reasons to make, you feel kind of full of shit and believing things that aren't true.
You talk about going. I want to know when the golf book is coming out, because you talk about obviously all them hours.
That's what I was just thinking, Tom. I'm like, he wrote the poker book, he wrote the trading book.
The biggest one for me that, like you say, changed my game. Them hours of putting, yeah, it helped because, like you say, you build confidence. But the biggest one for me during the tough times was a book by Dr. Bob Rotella, Golf is Not a Game of Perfect, and I'd read that multiple times a season, and I still read it now and relate it back to my trading. So when is the golf version coming out?
No comment.
No comment. Fair enough. Go on.
But here's the thing. I mean, Rotella's book is great, and I know, like I recently read it again for the first time in a long time too. And his book was one of the ones that I read, years ago that helped me. His book I would kind of categorize as like the trading in the zone equivalent, and they're phenomenal books. They are seminal works. What makes my work different is like the practicality and the diagnostic precision, right? So they kind of look at like macro, big picture, general philosophy,
yes.
theory, perspective, and Rotella's specifically, I think, Douglas's work does a bit more of it than Rotella's. Like, what's the roadmap? Like, what's the practicality? I think for me, like the system that I've created, right, has been, kind of incubated in golf, honed in trade, in poker, and really kind of, I think, consolidated in trading. But it was also applied in my work with esports. So for 4 years, I was the head of Team Liquid, which is one of the largest esport orgs in the world, working with some of their high level teams who, mind you, right, I mean, esports can kind of, I know it's kind of blown up recently, but like one team won first prize of the Dota championship for $14 million. We're talking like millions of dollars on the line. So like the intensity for, kind of new athletes, like new performers, it was very, very high. So to me, like the system that I've created is really about sustainability and growth over the long term. It's not about like kind of patchwork band-aiding to like kind of get, immediate performance out today. For me, like I'm after like something that is going to hold up under the most intense and extreme circumstances. And frankly, like, I mean, that's what trading is for many, many people, especially those who do not have like a large kind of competitive background to lean on. I think when I like look at like, what makes like trading unique, it's one of okay, so let's, for argument's sake, say that it is actually the most competitive marketplace in the world, which I don't think too many people would argue with. But to have that be true and then also have the doors wide open, like, I mean, the NFL, there are so many different steps that you have to climb in order to be able to like step out on that field. I mean, $4,000, $3,000, like it doesn't take a lot of capital for you to suddenly be playing in the NFL. And that, is going to bring out a lot of inherent pressure and intensity that I think, a lot of new traders are not necessarily prepared for.
That's very well said. I don't hear people talk about that enough. You know what I mean? Like it is open door. Anybody can come in and play, but that doesn't mean it's easy. But I do, like, in my own personal like experience, I feel like in a way the market is set up almost to suck those new people in and induce those emotional reactions. Like, for example, when I got into trading, Forex was the big thing, and it's 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. But now that I'm on my 8th year of trading, I trade for less than 3 hours a day most days. I'm not trying to trade 24/5, but it sucked you in and made you think this market is open. Come make money all the time whenever you want. But most successful traders, especially on the retail side, they aren't trading 24 hours a day. No one's doing that. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's a lot of those kind of like traps where the market, the way it's set up, it does say, yeah, come on in, but you have no idea what you're in for. That, you know what I mean?
But yeah, that's the difference between, being like in a casino versus being the casino.
Exactly.
Yeah. and the traders that I work with, like they are performers, right? And so if you are an athlete, if you're a mental athlete, whatever you want to call yourself, kind of in this domain, you have to be conditioned well mentally. And that's different necessarily from the mental game as I've kind of proposed it as like a mental and emotional problems. It's like, let's now look at it from a different lens, which is how am I going to be at my best? What are the kind of practical day-to-day habits, routines, processes that I need to be undertaking in order to be at my best and kind of be peaking mentally. So yeah, if you are going to be trading that frequently, you can do it, but you're only going to be able to do it for a short period of time, right? Like, the poker equivalent of going to, or not the trading equivalent of going to the World Series of Poker, where you're playing from, noon to 2 a.m. for 7 weeks, right? I mean, most poker players can't do that. They take, a couple of days off here and there, but for the most part, they are, I don't know, let's say out of those 7 times, let's call it 50 days, right? Out of those 50 days, they take off 2. So it's 48 days of like highly intense poker, right? They are absolutely destroyed at the end.
I can't even imagine that. That's crazy.
The rest of July and August off, right? But that kind of, so what's, no trader is going to like kind of be on and off the markets like that. Nobody's going to take 7 weeks off.
No, if anything, that'll set you, it's kind of different where like, it's just a different preparation, like that guy that's going to trade, every day, like me or Tom, I feel like our mental fortitude has to be a little bit more conditioned, where like that guy who's going to do the poker, it's going to be conditioned, but it's almost like a sprint compared to running a marathon, right? Is that a fair thing to say?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, that is a marathon to play for 7 weeks straight. Yeah, I mean, there are like cash game players. There are kind of like other poker players that have.
Well, I was saying like we as traders of the marathon, because we're doing it all day, all year. They're sprinting, but so they have to be like, because I ran track.
I would actually call what you're doing sprinting, right?
Okay.
I mean, like, because you can sprint, you can like 2-3 hours a day.
Sure.
Like,
so when you look at it that way, yeah, for like the actual trading, yeah, got it.
Yeah, the actual trading now. Yeah, exactly. I think to me, when I look at like what is the mentality that's going to, there are lots of ways to slice and dice. I mean, people think that there's these kind of caps on like, oh, like how long can you focus for one period of time? Like, people say you only have 24 minutes, 90 minutes. It's all about training, right? I mean, you can train your mind for pretty much anything. And a lot of it comes down to like what your goals are and how willing you are to actually, kind of fight.
It's always personal. Yeah, because like for you to say you'll lose focus after 24 minutes, that's such a blanket statement. You know what I'm saying? Like some people focus way better. Some people suck at focus. So like, I don't believe any of that stuff either. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's just, it's too random to be pretty.
So do you think, Jared, that traders need a high IQ to succeed? I'm curious.
No. I mean, I think IQ over 60 would probably be pretty helpful.
Right.
But, high IQs can sometimes be problematic when they come along with overconfidence. I mean, you've heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Of course.
So for those that haven't, right, Dunning-Kruger effect has two sides. One side is people who are very unaware of their own weaknesses and shortcomings will become overconfident because they falsely assume that they're better than they are. And then on the flip side, you can have a lot of skill, but then kind of falsely undervalue what you've learned because you kind of assume that everybody else knows what you know, right? And that problem, both sides of Dunning-Kruger can happen to, very high IQ people. So you'll have, some will become extremely overconfident and they will rage against a market that should be rewarding them. And then you have others who will be fearful and paralyzed because they know so much yet can't kind of pull the trigger in these key moments. So I don't see IQ as being kind of high causality. It oftentimes can be correlated, but we know the challenge between correlation does not equal causality.
So. No, it often does not. So on the flip side of that question of like, do they need a high IQ? Of course you need to have some knowledge. So I'm asking this a little bit different, but like, are there any common characteristics that you could point to through your years of coaching that would say that characteristic needs to change or you're going to struggle? Like because of course we could sit here and be like, what characteristics lead to success? Discipline, motivation, like, of course, but like, how about if we flip that? I like that reverse problem solving. Sometimes I think you get interesting perspectives. So is there anything that you could point to that says that characteristic in you, Tom or Austin, it needs to change or you will not reach your full potential?
Yeah. I mean, it's like along with that overconfidence very often is like a very kind of hardened assumption that either you're correct in what you see or your own kind of self-diagnosis or your own sense of what is right. Without being, open-minded. I think that can, of course, go kind of too far in the other direction. I'm not suggesting that you should be so open-minded that you don't have your own conviction. But we look at statistical research, very often they'll create confidence intervals of like 95%. They're not saying that this is a fact until, right, we get so much data that has kind of proven it and replicated it, over and over again.
Yeah.
So, keep yourself a little bit open to new ideas, other perspectives, and the idea that you might be wrong.
I love that.
The hubris that like everything that you see, whether it's with regard to your system or your strategy or how the market's behaving, or, what is or is not your mental and emotional weaknesses. I mean, I'm certain that there are many people who have read my book who went into it thinking that they had let's say an anger problem. And because of that, they weren't open to the fact that the anger was actually being caused by a weakness in confidence. And the book didn't help them because they weren't able to work the system properly because they didn't go into it with, a mind that was open to be malleable and influenced by, a different perspective.
And so
good.
Interesting. So you talk about you work with these traders that are aware and that have been in the market for a while. Do you not find that they are sometimes some of the harder people to coach because they've got a lot of unlearning to do.
No doubt. I mean, so when I look at my work with like institutional firms, now we had like actually two layers. A, they've been in the industry for a very long time. B, they weren't the ones that paid nor signed up. So, they're kind of being forced into this. They're being recommended it. And, for all well and good, like I know I can provide value, their degree of openness is kind of being forced upon them. So yeah, but that's not characteristic of everybody. I think the really elite, especially in today's day and age, are the ones that are like, I don't care what they throw at me. Like I'm willing to try everything because I don't know what I don't know. And so because of that, then let's just see what I don't know. And then I'll learn something and I'll find out whether or not you can provide value or not.
That's very interesting. I heard, go ahead, Tom, sorry.
So you're talking about the elite, like being, I want to know what separates the top, from like the higher end of average? Like what really separates the top people?
Just pure luck. No.
Height. It's actually height. They have to be over 6'5".
Yeah, exactly. 6'5", IQ of exactly 100.
Are there any commonalities?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a number of them. So for me, I look at like passion and love. I mean, you can't because the amount of work and time and effort and thoughtfulness and sacrifice that you need to put in order to reach that level, you can't certainly hate what you do, right? You can't hate trading of the markets. You can't hate trading or poker or golf. And you can't just like moderately like it. Like you have to have a deep love and passion, and it's got to kind of just like, be like kind of that tuning fork in your soul that like this thing lines up for you perfectly. And for me, that like golf is that, right? I mean, I play poker. I'm starting to get like a home game, going here. Not a lot of people are willing to believe that I'm not that great. I mean, I'm, kind of like the guy that watches CNBC and, thinks he can, trade. It's the same thing with trading. Like, I mean, I trade crypto. I pay attention to the markets, but like, I understand the difference between casual observer, hobbyist, and, even just like being decent. Right?
No, there's a massive gap. You have to,
it's a massive gap. So
like a compulsion that pulls you to the charts or a compulsion that pulls you to the golf course. Oh, you and your wife are splitting up. I might as well go to the fucking driving range. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of compulsion.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you have like to like truly. So I dedicate myself in golf. So like, that's where it is for me. And frankly, coaching too. I mean, there's a lot there, but like you have to have that love and passion. If you do not have that, you can be very, very good, but you will not be elite. And so then, of course, secondary to that is the work ethic and the diligence. And again, I think I'm not going to say that the lack of hubris or the willingness to be kind of more open-minded is a requirement, because there are a lot of elite traders, poker players, athletes that are
arrogant.
But I think the ability to sustain it for very long periods of time, the great ones are willing to listen and be coachable, right? You think of the Tiger Woods, like Tiger had many coaches over the years, including like Jordan, right? Had Phil Jackson, right? He like, and
Tim Grover.
Yeah. I mean, they had, great. I was thinking of his coach in North Carolina.
I don't remember his North Carolina. I just know Tim Grover.
Dean.
Yeah.
So he had great. He was coachable. Like, right. And of course, he kind of banged his head early in his NBA career. But like, point is, like, to be closed-minded is not like bad in short periods of time. But I think to sustain greatness and eliteness over a long period of time, which I am more interested in. Like, I'm not interested in the trader that can have like 1 or 2 years of. It's just not exciting to me. Like, I want the sustained greatness, and that's what the program is really, designed for.
I love that. So I know we're on a time crunch, Jared. So I'm going to let you go now, because before we could just keep going. I know, and it'll get too deep, and then I'll have to cut us off. So I wouldn't
complain.
No, it's been really great speaking with you. There's just so many other questions that I'm sure we could dive into. And I know that the audience is enjoying it. Like, even from my perspective, I learned a lot from your book. I learned a lot from listening to you now. And there's just, I'm sure, more for us to go into. So we'll put a bookend in it for now. what I like to do is I'll open it to the audience on YouTube and on Spotify, everywhere. If you guys want to drop comments, let us know what questions you have for Jared after hearing a little bit about his background, maybe more than you ever knew, maybe more about his professional career. Like, I'm just curious about your business, Jared, like how you're getting more well-known and how you're growing. Are you running Google ads? Like, from the entrepreneur in me, I want to learn how you're getting these, really successful clients. But like I said, for another time, so we'll open up the comments. Where can everybody connect with you? Where's the best place to reach with you and find the books?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at Jared Tendler, my website, jaredtendler.com. If you've got the books, there's a lot of free resources on there, like downloadable worksheets that will kind of help you utilize the system. I also have a free intuition ebook on there. So I read the Mental Game of Poker 2 a couple of years after the Mental Game of Poker came out, and I have no plans of writing the Mental Game of Trading 2, but the bottom line is like it does kind of go into more of like kind of the A game zone like topics. And so the topic of intuition was one that I wanted to really be as part of the Mental Game of Trading. There was no good place to fit it. And so I just kind of made it as a free companion piece. So definitely go and download that one, because I do offer some very different perspectives on the topic of intuition. I think there's a lot of bad advice out there and people that are kind of getting that concept wrong. And of course, if you want, information on my coaching or the masterclass that I did, for my trading psychology masterclass, it's all on my website as well.
It's awesome. I really appreciate it again, Jared. I know the audience does as well. Tom, I know you have more questions, but we'll save them for next time. This has been good. Thank you. I appreciate you staying up late for the UK for making this happen. And everybody listening, watching, we'll see you all in the next episode. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Tom.